Hello, everybody. It's Sam, the Reclaimer developer, and I thought I would just make a quick video giving an update on the channel, like as far as what's been going on with me, and just some comments that I have about things that have been going on in like the tech slash software slash gaming industry. First of all, you can probably tell that the background is a little bit different. My family and I have packed up and moved to a new city, and we're still kind of living out of boxes and stuff, and we still have some things to move. It's about a 2 hour trip one way back to where our old house was, so we're still quite busy and things are a little bit tumultuous, I guess, right now. So I haven't had a ton of time to work on the Reclaimer, but it has still been in the back of my mind, and I just wanted to just kind of show this is pretty much exactly where it was left off last time, just prioritizing the player rig and fixing issues with like you can see these weird oscillations that are coming with like rotating and stuff like that, and yeah, it's like things get kind of wonky. So we're just going to focus on fixing these bugs and getting the player rig to an acceptable state. And it's beyond important that that works correctly, simply because it's the lens through which the player is going to interact with the game and see the world. Like, this is no surprise at this point. We talked about that a lot, and I've been working on some supplemental material. Like, I have an idea that of making some sort of a graphic novel that could be as a supplement, maybe to like kickstart the development of the game once the actual demo is complete. But all in due time, and I think at this point the website's going to be the most important thing. I said that's been coming for a long time, and I'm actually going to be sitting down to complete that. But one reason I wanted to make this video is talk about, I think that software engineering is, like actual programming, is starting to become a radical idea. And which is funny to me because it used to be a radical idea. So, and what sort of kicked this off for me to think about was this new title that, if you're a gamer, if you stay up to date with like gaming news, you've probably heard of the Gollum game. Like, this game was announced, I think, probably like back in 2019, and it was one of the most like anticipated titles. It recently came out, and the reviews are universally very, very bad. Like, there's very few redeeming qualities about it. Like, I think someone said, like, in here that, like, let's look at the pros. Like, it's unique, but, I mean, unique titles, while they're becoming increasingly rare, like, it doesn't take all that much to, like, come up with something that's inherently unique or divergent from like other main stories and stuff. And I think they also mentioned the sound design was pretty good, but like, look at the cons here. Like, the visuals, like most games today, look pretty good, and I think this one's made in like Unreal Engine. So hearing about an Unreal Engine game that looks bad is kind of awful to hear about. And the story and the action is dull, and the bugs are untenable. So apparently the AI is very bad, so it's not really even fun at all to stealth around, which is the game's primary way of playing. It encourages stealth. And like, I'm not going to play the game. I'm not going to spend my money on it, and it's a $70 title. And the graphics don't hold up to games that came out like 10 or 15 years ago. And the performance issues, the thing that really frustrates me is like when you hear about these AAA titles. I don't know if this is a AAA title or not. Like, for being a game developer, like I don't spend a ton of time gaming anymore, so like I hear about this from like third parties and like things come up on YouTube, and like the graphics don't hold up and the gameplay is dull, and but the thing that gets me the most is hearing things about like frame rate drops, screen tearing, things that do not have any, like there's no excuse for things like this in 2023. And it is not because of bad hardware. Actually, let me look this up really quick. I think it was like the Gollum system requirements, right? Okay, so let's look at the system requirements, right? So you need a 64-bit processor, which, I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to find something that wasn't 64-bit nowadays. So 8 gigabytes of RAM to run it stably, to run it stable. And it's like, NVIDIA GTX 1060 with 6 gigabytes, or Radeon 4 gigabytes, and 45 gigabytes of space. For what? For this? And it's like, look at the graphics. They, like a game that I think about sometimes that came out for like, I believe it was like the 360, was Psychonauts. And, this, and it's not that Psychonauts had bad graphics, but like, it was an extremely high rated game that had a lot of passion put into it. And there's something, and like that came out, over 10 years ago, and there is something just so soulless and so dead about it, And it's like these comical looking graphics, in addition to the the screen tearing and the frame rate drop problems. And so you're going to get that with, like, you need outrageous system requirements just to run the thing, in its, just to run it stable. And you still have these performance issues. And, I don't think that this is a problem that just plagues gaming companies. So, reading this article, right, we see that there is a developer shortage amid mass tech layoffs. So, over the past 3 years, workers have been faced with a series of unexpected challenges. We had COVID-19, economic downturn, volatile work environments. The industry, people in the industry are overworked, underpaid, being constantly laid off, and there is just an overall, I don't want to say lack of talent, but what these companies are doing is they are prioritizing codeless solutions and things like AI. Like, here's, like, look at this part. In most cases, low-code/no-code tools are filling in the gaps left by vacant roles and helping organizations keep up with the necessary pace of development. The lack of skilled developers challenges being solved by the use of low-code/no-code tools in more than 3/4 of organizations. So, like, do you remember how I said that coding, programming, software engineering is becoming a radical idea? Like, the idea of just, like, how about we sit down, like, we're going to sit down at a whiteboard, we're going to talk about the problems we're having, we're going to design a system, and then we're just going to build the thing. it's rare that companies are doing this anymore. Like, um, let's take a look at this really quick. I was kind of going off in a rabbit hole of looking up like what did the first business computers look like. Um, so you have these machines that when they came out, I believe, like look at this. Uh, I think this looks like a company called Digital. The first commercial mini computer, the PDP-5, program data processor, they were developed between 1959 and 1962. This is, before the age of the space race, by the way. Or I think during it, actually. I don't really know the dates off the top of my head. It had a price tag of $27,000. And it was the first computer with more than 1,000 units sold. It weighed over 500 pounds. Like, I love the little thing here. It only weighed 540 pounds. Compare it, like it looks like kind of like a server cabinet that you would see in like a big corporate IT department. But this picture of the machine probably is larger than the memory capacity of it. Like, when I was working on an NES emulator, just looking at the size of like Super Mario Brothers for NES, it was something about like 4 kilobytes in size. Like if you run that emulation on an emulator on a modern computer, and you take a screenshot of the emulator running, that screenshot is larger than the game file. And so, like, look at these things. Can you imagine what it was like back in the day to program one of these things? Like, and it was a radical investment. Like, these things had price stickers of, like, tens of thousands of dollars, some of them, just for one. And so you're a business, and you're purely a pen and paper business. And then someone has the idea of like, let's automate some things. We're going to purchase a digital computing system. We're going to have to learn how to actually program it and automate things. And so that is a huge risk, right? You're branching off away from things that you know to work on things that you aren't familiar with and may not work out. That could be a huge cost sink if it doesn't work out. But people did their due diligence. They bought the machines. They learned how to program them. And it's like, once things become automated and they write software that works and the computers are actually doing what their intended purpose, they save time, they save money, they increase productivity. And so now you're not just a business that worked on your original thing, you're also a software company. And so, and also something I also want to point out that was common about this time. Computing used to be a woman-dominated field. Back in the day, it's very stereotypical. Computer programmers were undervalued, underpaid, just like as they are today. And it was considered a woman's job, if that makes sense. And this was the days of like the ENIAC were like World War II. Men were, basically going to war, and, that left, women-dominated industries where they would be actually programming, these things that would be calculating ballistics trajectories, like as you can see right here. These were like the first biocomputers, right? They were people who calculated missile trajectories by hand. And then when they adopted computers, they, instead of doing them by hand, they actually programmed them to calculate the trajectories of missiles. For a long time, computer programming was seen as sort of like, oh, that's just a woman's job. We will, let them do it. This is a very famous photo that you may be familiar with. Margaret Hamilton, 1969. She led the team at MIT that produced the software for the Apollo project. Look at how many books. It might even be as tall as she is. It might be taller than she is. Like, look at all of that. And so, like, today, computer programming, it sort of got flipped on its head, where it's now mostly a male-dominated field, and it's a very profitable one too. But you see, we're starting to regress in the idea that coding is a radical idea, right? So developers are being laid off. We're going with more codeless solutions, and as in, hey, we are not going to invest the time in doing this properly. We want something that has a right application or right game button so we can click it and then get our product out. And the results are, pretty straightforward. So everybody likes to talk about how modern gaming is terrible. We have computers that are more powerful, like, this phone that I have in my pocket contains more processing power than all of the United States during the time of the Apollo missions. And yet software quality is worse than it has ever been. And it's not just something that plagues gaming. I feel like the gaming industry is something that screams the loudest because, people don't really jump on the hype train for like the latest gen word processor. They're jumping on the latest hype train for big name titles, things that look good, that sound good, and that are engaging. But software in general is becoming a heartless, soulless, and I would say even brainless industry. Because to write software is just like any other form of engineering. Someone has to sit down and say, here are the problems and we need to solve them. And we're going to design a solution. And it's not that things are being outsourced, but rather they're trying to take the engineering aspect away from software engineering. Let's engineer by abstraction instead of engineer by engineering. That's a line from Mike Acton during his CPPCon talk at his talk of data-oriented design. Yeah, it's a radical idea of just like, why can't we just write software that's good? And that's one inspiration behind why I'm doing what I'm doing. Is like, I'm going to sit down and figure out the problems that need to be solved and solve them. And this is how things used to be done. And it's not really as radical as one would think, because this used to be done all the time. But, there are so many businesses today that are like, we're not going to waste our time on this. Let's do a bunch of prefab stuff. And they keep contributing to the problem of terrible software quality, which is where I want to do things a bit different. It's like, let's write software that works. And I'm going to prove that it's possible. Even as a guy who, I consider myself not an expert programmer. I've been programming for a while. But I'm going to sit down and I'm going to figure out the problems that need to be solved, and I'm going to solve them until there's a product that's worth putting in people's hands. And it won't be at the cost of $70 either, because that's just absurd. So anyway, I would just want to thank everybody for tuning in, And I just wanted to make a quick video to just let you know that everything is still going okay in my world, and I should be back to producing regular content soon. I'm hoping to actually have some friends of mine, people I know who've been like people who aren't necessarily programmers, but people who like extremely talented people who also have a passion for games, just coming onto the channel to share their thoughts on everything that's going on and just give me a chance to show off some people who I really admire. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.